This show contains profanity, advice you should never follow, humor that you might not enjoy. The names have been changed to protect the guilty. Do not try this at home.
Greetings, yellow blazers, blue blazers, Bill Bryson lovers, Bill Bryson haters, pink blazers.
Purple blazers? Just makes me think of Cedric the Entertainer.
Welcome to the Puss podcast, a proud member of the Appalachian Trail family. To my right, my name is Pox Holiday, and to my right,
Puss in Boots.
And today, when we come back, we're going to talk about movies, TVs, commercials, things you'll see in media about the outdoorsy stuff. Boom.
Hey folks, Pox Holiday here. We told you we'd warn you. Spoiler alert. Okay, we're going to talk about Wild on this episode, and we're going to talk about another movie that has something to do with a long-distance trail that was also a book. We'll get into that later. But just wanted to tell you that we're going to talk about Wild, so that means we're going to spoil some stuff. So if you haven't seen it yet, wait and listen to this episode after you've seen it, or just fast forward like 75% of the way through or something like that. I don't know. The other thing I wanted to say is that we do talk about some sensitive subject matter. If you've seen Wild or if you've read the book, you know what we're talking about. SEX and a word that has R in it. You know, it starts with an R, but it's not the one that... Anyway, you know what we're talking about. Okay, so we're making some jokes. We're talking about stuff. We're not making light of the situation. We're just talking about it, okay? Only the way that Puss and I know how to. Okay, so I'm going to shut up now. Have fun.
So it seems like a lot of the things I talk about that lead off our show tend to seem like they come from interactions I've had at convenience stores.
I think that's largely in part to the fact that we are in dire need of alcoholic beverages.
Right before. Yes.
And we're like, fuck. we're like middle schoolers. Well, I'm going to backtrack and go ahead and say high schoolers, which is not any kind of representation of myself as a human being. But we're like high schoolers desperately trying to find condoms. We're on our way to our girlfriend's house. We need those things.
We need them. No, and sometimes.
Do you have beer? Yeah, we've got real shitty beer. That'll work.
Do you sell condoms before noon?
It's Sunday.
Oh fuck!
It's the Lord's Day. Jesus.
Yeah, and so this one was from about a week ago, but I stopped at this convenience store that's been around for like 30 years, and at least 30 years, and it's getting ready to close down at the end of the month. And so I went in, and there's this young lady that works behind the counter. She's pretty funny, and or one of those people you don't mind talking to behind the counter when you go into a store.
Yeah.
And so I walked up, and sometimes when it's slow, the girls that work there will like literally watch like Friends on Netflix up on the screens inside the place, or they'll watch. I mean, I went in there one time and they were watching Seventh Heaven. So I walk up, and the girl is like kind of like wiping away like little tears out of the corner of her eye, and I'm like, doing all right? And she's like, I did it to myself. I'm like, oh yeah? She's like, I'm watching sad commercials on my phone. I'm like, just passing the time watching. She's like, yeah. And she's like, I don't know why. And I was like, have you seen the Android commercial that uses the Robin Hood song from Disney?
Yes.
With the best friends?
Yes.
And have you seen the minute-long version online?
My husband and I watched it.
Oh, it's so good. And yeah, and then you're just like, oh, especially the orangutan in the end falling on his back.
I know, falling over. He's so cute.
And so we were sitting there, and I was like, have you seen that one? She's like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh. And so literally there's nobody in the store. So like me and this girl are sitting there like watching this commercial, and it was the first time I had seen the full minute one. I only thought we were going to see like the 30-second one. Then it was just like, oh,
yeah.
And so I got thinking about commercials and stuff like that after that, and so I looked up. I was like, I went on YouTube, and I was like, there have to be like old camping commercials or something. And so I was just looking up like camping commercials. Like the first one that popped in my head used to be these old radio spots for Deer Park water. Remember the Deer Park, like, bottled water? Yeah. And Deer Park, I think that's the one that had the guy. It reminded me of Jim Cook from Sam Adams, so he does his own commercials.
Right.
But like Deer Park was a water that was supposed to be from the springs of the Appalachian Trail. And
Really?
it had some. So I think I tried to find that, but I couldn't find it because it was
I
a
thought it
radio.
was in Florida.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not Deer Park. There used to be one I used to hear, a radio commercial where like the owner of the company would do a commercial for water that came from the Appalachian Trail Springs. Yeah, like I want to say this might have even
Whoa.
been before I hiked the Appalachian Trail. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but so I was trying to find some things and I found a couple. This is a 1970s Coleman camping commercial.
Out here, some things are pretty much like they are at home.
Oh, careful.
Like Coleman tents. They're really canvas cabins with double doors that let the family in, 2 picture windows that let the breezes in, and nylon screen that makes sure nothing else gets in. And like Coleman sleeping bags, they're so soft and roomy you'll forget you're roughing it.
Hey!
Coleman, greatest name in the great outdoors.
Okay, real quick. It really pops up when you only hear the commercial. Like seeing it, you're seeing things happening. What does this child say at the beginning of the commercial?
Out here, some things are pretty much...
I'm guessing I'm gonna race you.
Out here, some things...
Yeah.
Are you saying I'm gonna rape you?
Out here, some things are pretty...
Yeah, you'd think somebody would have been like, let's do that again.
That was the 70s. But I was like, oh man. So that took me down this like long road of other commercials.
Okay. I don't like where this is going already.
I'll only do this one. This man has a habit of promoting shoe companies that don't make sense for him.
When you're out street hiking, you better know how to read the terrain. First, trust your instincts. By all means, avoid distractions. Do your best to preserve the wildlife, because street hikers don't just walk, they hike.
And that, of course, was Joe Montana,
Joe
famous
Montana, yeah.
famous hiker. Joe Montana,
Known for his hiking.
known for his street hiking.
Yeah.
So Joe Montana not only has he done LA Gear, but he also, remember, he used to do the Skechers Shape Ups. He did Skechers Shape Up
Did he do
commercials a couple years.
isotoners?
God, I feel like he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Maybe that
he-
was just an Ace Ventura.
I know Dan Marino was isotoners.
Never mind.
But there was, like, in the early 90s, there was a resurgence of hiking. Seeing this commercial, all you need to do is Joe Montana LA Gear street hiking commercial is what it's called. But
I remember having LA Gear stuff and being like, yeah, this is LA Gear.
no shit, it's LA Gear. I remember having a pair of Nike ACG all conditions gear shoes. They were called the Lawnmower
For
Man.
any condition.
Oh, any. And but they were a low top brown hiker. And it was called the Lawnmower Man, and on the heel it had like a cartoonish neon green guy pushing a lawnmower, and they really were like great shoes. Like they lasted a very long time, but which you wouldn't expect from a pair of Nikes or whatever. But so I mean, I could bore us for. I wound up finding tons. Actually, no, there's one more I have to.
Oh, okay.
This will be the last one. This one was one where I was like, how the fuck does this make sense? Why would you use this? So this is a Procter & Gamble Crest toothpaste commercial. It's entitled Billy Goes Camping. It says 70 to 75 era.
Okay.
Here you are, Mr. Goodwin.
Hello there, Billy. Going camping?
I got a load up with supplies.
Well, I see you got your soap and eats. What about toothpaste? Got your Crest?
I don't need Crest anymore.
Now, hold on. You've been having good checkups.
Yeah, but the dentist just put something on my teeth to fight cavities.
Well, that's good. That's fluoride. But you can still get cavities. I bet he didn't tell you to stop brushing with Crest, did he?
Well, no, but...
Crest fluoride gives you extra protection against cavities in addition to what your dentist does.
You mean I still need Crest?
What do you think, Bill?
Well, I sure don't like cavities.
You want a big tube or a little one?
A little one, I guess. I'm just going till dinner time.
Crest is accepted by the American Dental Association.
You can't beat Crest for fighting cavities.
What did that have to do anything with camping?
You want a big tube or a little one?
Yeah. There's a long line. The commercial that made me think of that was, I don't remember, in the 80s, I remember a Mountain Dew commercial in which these people take surfboards and they surf on a river. Like, surf the wave like you would in a whitewater kayak boat, like surfing. So, like, they literally are on surfboards, like where a waterfall's coming down, they're getting that whatever the hell. Anyway, they're actually surfing on a river.
Okay.
And that was like the first like extreme commercial I remember as a kid. Like, that's crazy. And so I just started thinking, I think I tried to find that commercial, and then I wound up finding Coleman.
And then 2 hours later.
Yeah, 2 hours later, still at work.
With your limp dick in your hand. That was terrible.
We've been threatening for about 2 months now to do an episode about Wild. And I guess
we're going to do it,
the
goddamn
time
it.
is here. Yeah. I guess 2 months we should have figured out how we were going to talk about it.
Well, okay, let's go. I feel like among hiker friends and non-hiker friends, there was a big difference in how the whole movie was interpreted.
Yeah.
Something that struck me was like a non-hiker friend was like, yeah, I didn't realize this, but did you know that they hike like 25 miles a day? And I was like, yep, sure did. And like it was more I don't know, for me, I felt like I spent most of the time watching the movie either going, well, that's not how it is on the AT at all.
Right.
Or wondering why they didn't focus more on the relationship with her mother like they did in the book. Like the book.
Yes, I haven't read it. Yeah.
The book was an amazing book, and the movie was a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
But like for a hiker, I feel like I focused more on the story. But I think for non-hikers, they were so mesmerized by the notion of a hike that it almost made the story less followable, because, you know, here's something big and bright and shiny that's like blinding them to what was actually going on.
Right.
So I think that there was a big difference just demographically on how it caught your attention.
Right.
And for me, you know, I walked out of the I watched it with my husband. He is not what I would call a hiker. He loves camping. He loves being outside, but does not have any interest in long distance hiking. And, you know, we walked out of the theater, and the things that I went, wow, you know, this was cool or amazing, or I think could have been done better. You know, he walked out going, so are there really creepy guys on the trail like that? And like wondering about my safety.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily think was represented. I don't want to say fairly, because certainly that stuff can happen, but does it happen? I don't think anywhere near as much.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, no, I didn't hate it. I'm going to speak to something that I was listening to. You know, everybody that listens to this knows that I listen to between 8 and 10 hours of podcasts a day. So I'm burning a lot of time. And one of my favorite ones, a podcast I've actually gone to go see live, is Doug Loves Movies with Doug Benson. And so he did a podcast from Traverse City Film Festival in Michigan. And he had a bunch of people on there. And one of my favorite comedians, Nikki Glazer, I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, but she's on At Midnight. She used to be on...
I just met her.
Boom! But she's on At Midnight a lot. She wins a lot on there, and she used to be on Chelsea Lately and things like that. But she's pretty funny. But every time Doug has people on his show, it's usually a panel of like 3 to 4 people. And he always asks them if they've been to the movies lately. And so he asked Nikki Glazer if she had been to the movies lately, and she had this to say.
I saw Wild.
You like that?
Yeah, it was good. The whole movie, though, for me, I think for everyone was just like, oh no, when's she gonna get raped? Like that was the whole movie. It was just like white knuckling it. Like, is it now? Shit.
So yeah, that's the way I felt from minute one.
Yeah.
And that film was. It just, and this is the one thing, and this is why I'm happy you read the book, because is that a major theme in the book? Is her, because what I was wondering was this a artistic license with it like raising the tension for a movie effect?
I think there was a lot more put onto like her history, where she had basically, like, she had done a lot of drugs and she had struggled a lot with addiction, and like part of her coping mechanism for getting over drug addiction was a sexual addiction.
Right.
So she was real easy for a good bit of her life.
Right.
And it was always kind of a struggle for her to not resort back to that if she needed to.
Right.
But the movie definitely set it up so that every single man was going to rape her. Like that's
the guy running the tractor. You're like, yeah, this
is a terrible idea.
And he reaches out and gets the bag. You're like, oh well, here it goes. Here's the gun. Or
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, even when, spoiler, she has consensual sex with somebody, you're still just like, oh, when's this guy gonna turn into a real asshole?
Yeah.
Like, it still puts you on edge. And you almost want to throw a little party, like when she leaves that guy, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, that worked out in her favor, yay!
Hey.
I think in the book, there maybe was like a teeny tiny blip on the radar, and in the movie, because visually, like, Reese Witherspoon is so lovable and you want to protect her, and then like there are predatory type men that you're like, no, Reese, run. That it makes it
run,
a little
Reese,
it makes it a little bit more scary, that you're a little bit more like, this is a terrible situation that I don't want her to be in. But in the book,
that's Johnny Cash's wife.
It doesn't really describe the same way. Like any book versus movie, the amount of time that one detail can spend in a book can be blown way out of proportion in a movie, and vice versa.
That's why I wondered. I was like, am I overreacting to this? Because, but yeah, I was wondering, like, is this like a really big running theme throughout the entire thing? I mean, I think that just kind of, she definitely obviously has trust issues in general,
right?
So that probably comes through. But the two big things popped out for me. Just kind of my immediate reactions. I was like,
two big things that popped out for me was that, I'm going to go ahead and say,
boop, boop.
Reese Witherspoon has fantastic boobs for having two kids that she admits to breastfeeding for long periods of time. Like, way to go, kiddo.
Yeah. I mean,
if I can look like you when I have two kids, I will be all right.
The rest of that, like, there's like a few more minutes on Douglas movies about Wild. But in there, Nikki Glaser goes on about, like, she's hot.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect that, and
good job.
Yeah. The other thing I really liked about, when they do flashbacks, just so you know, when we're done with this, I want to do like a thing where you and I, we'll put it at the beginning of this, where it's like, so we don't have to keep saying spoiler alert.
Okay.
We'll just have like, this is a spoiler. Because did you see that reaction that day that I said we were going to do this show? And they were like, it's like one of the most commented things we've ever had, where people are like, don't do it because I haven't seen it yet. And this and this and this. And I was like,
okay,
don't listen to it till later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're going to say spoiler alert at the beginning.
Yeah.
And like, you can always wait. And people are like, oh yeah,
you
can.
You should title it spoiler alert.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But yeah, the two things that I really like, okay, this movie is going to appeal to two types of people.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like I say hopeless romantic, but I just mean like emotional, just people that find beauty in things. Yeah. Because
the emotional wanderluster.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Thank you.
And I put hiker at the end of that. I said hopeless romantic hikers, people that like, you can take yourself out of it. I think the one thing that everybody has said something to me, because last night I was with some friends and I said that we were going to talk about this. They're like, oh yeah, with the gigantic pack. And I'm like, that's the point of the fucking story.
Yeah.
She didn't go to a store and buy the newest shit. She had what she could get and got some stuff, but it was like, that's the point of the story. She has this gigantic pack. It's not like she was like, oh, this is what everybody takes into the woods.
Yeah.
The other thing I remind people of,
she's a pretty
like,
broken person with some broken shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's the idea.
Yeah, and I'm
she
like,
has
it's not
no
like
knowledge.
No, not at all. And the other thing is, what is it? 92?
Yeah.
93?
Something like
Or
that.
95.
Something like that, yeah.
It's 95 because I remember it was the same year Prof hiked the AT. I just remember thinking that in my head.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, so it's 95. So, I mean, in 98, I was still carrying a 55 to 60 pound pack, and I went out and bought new shit.
Yeah.
So, external frames were still the shit in 95. And
They were the only shit in 95.
True. And they just, everything there, like, anyway. So her pack, I'm not even going to fucking bother with people who want to bitch about it. There's a whole scene in there where a guy goes through and shakes it down. And, yeah, I wasn't worried about him assaulting her.
No, he was probably one of the only ones.
Yeah. Of course, she was also surrounded by people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm not as worried about that guy. He's got a non-threatening Hawaiian shirt on. And the other thing that I said, that the number 2 people that this movie will appeal to are people who are looking for something, And I think
that goes back to the emotional wanderlust.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's why there's already been like a huge response. I don't know if you knew this or not, but the AT and the PCT have implemented a sign up.
Yeah.
Now, the ATs is a little bit more informal,
Yeah.
and I believe they're trying to restrict the number of people leaving from Campo to like 50 a day.
Yeah, 50 a day.
Yeah.
For the PCT. I didn't even know that the AT was doing anything similar to that.
They're just doing it more. Laurie Potteiger, who is now a fan of Pox and Puss and is friends with Pox Holiday on Facebook and Twitter.
We had better not fuck this up.
Yeah, I was just like, I did a lot of baiting. I was like, I really wish Laurie Potteiger would be my friend one day, and so yeah, so now we're tight, and she's a big fan of Appalachian Trails and everything that's happening there. Nice. So yeah, but so the one on the AT is more just kind of an informal, voluntary. It's not a restriction thing. They're just trying to do a numbers thing. Yeah. It seems like,
which I'm curious about anyway.
Yeah,
like I really want to know. Yeah, who was I talking to the other day? I was talking about that when I was on trail, that it was like maybe 1 out of every 10 hikers was female.
Right.
And I was talking about mopping up the rest of my hike this summer, and I was like, well, I mean, I can kind of expect, and I automatically like backtracked on myself, and I was like, well, maybe not. There was just Reese Witherspoon was just a distance hiker in a major motion picture this year. There's a fair chance that maybe it could be half and half this year. Yeah. Who the fuck knows? Like, I mean, it's up there with when A Walk in the Woods, the book came out. Yeah. There, I mean, A Walk in the Woods, the movie is coming out. What's it going to look like next year? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that I know that A Walk in the Woods was picked up. Here's my favorite thing. You probably saw my post about a month ago whenever it was announced that A Walk in the Woods was going to be in Sundance. Yeah. And people were like, oh, it made it to Sundance. I'm like,
doy.
Does anybody know what Sundance is named after?
Yeah.
Who was that guy?
That guy, he is like kind of old and wrinkly, but still devilishly handsome.
But it set a record for being purchased so I guess that's part of Sundance is, you have your movie and you're basically shopping it. You're basically like, here's my movie. Who wants to buy and distribute this movie? Mm-hmm. I didn't really know that. I didn't really give a shit about that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But I looked into it about A Walk in the Woods.
I assumed film festival. Like,
yeah. But I guess this is like... You got an order
you didn't or something like that.
It's like you get it in there and then people will say, I want to buy that and distribute it or not. I have a friend who had one. Said. Exactly. I have a friend who...
You get it in there and then people say, I want to buy that and distribute it.
So I have a friend who had a movie that went to Sundance. They got in. It did really well. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like it didn't really get picked up, but it made it there. That kind of thing. So Walk in the Woods was picked up for like $18 million or something like that for distribution by a company that's kind of small.
Yeah.
But they're going to pump whatever amount of money into promoting it, and it was going to be released, I think, in November of this year, but they've moved it now to August, so it has a little bit more time to be in theaters beforehand because they're like, they said Oscar considerations, but it's a comedy. I don't think it's going to have any, maybe
what?
like technical stuff.
I've already resigned myself, and I've said many times, we use it in our intro. Bill Bryson lovers, Bill Bryson haters.
Yeah.
People have varying levels of commitment to this book.
Yeah.
I love it based on the part that is played in my life of introducing me to the AT.
Right.
So, I will always have a soft spot for the book. It will probably be the book that I've read cover to cover the most in my life. I think I've read it like 10 or 12 times.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I've read it a bunch.
I need to read it again.
I've
said that probably every episode we've ever had.
It's a real fucking good book. And there are lots of people that will really fight me on that one. But it's enjoyable. It's a good read. It's very, it's got a lot of history, a lot of good information about the AT. Is it the Thru-Hiker's companion? Shit, no. But it's a good book. It's really enjoyable, and I like what it's done for the AT.
Yeah. I kind of view that book the same way I view Cheryl Strayed's Backpack.
Yeah.
That's like a dividing thing. It's like, and granted, the book is probably divisive as well, but it's like that's what sticks. Like the book with for Bill Bryson is he didn't finish a trail.
Sure.
No shit. He decided to call himself a thru-hiker. That's his thing. But so there's that, and then this Backpack seem to be the two things that stand out to me. He didn't finish, and she had. Now, granted, she didn't finish either, but she didn't set out to. That's the point. Like
she finished.
I thought she only did 1,100 miles.
She finished.
She finished in the.
We should look this up
because it's the book. It says it's 1,100 miles, but maybe because I think it's a hike of 1,100 miles. Because did she start at Campo? I didn't even think she started at Campo. Yeah. Okay. Because it doesn't show that.
I have a friend. Yeah, everybody does. Everybody has that friend that was raised by hippies that like is so in tune with like feminism and equal rights and like all of these really strongly politically correct stuff. And she seems so on point, he or she seems so on point about like what's going on all the time in every single place and like the direction at which to view these things.
Right,
and like,
yeah. Yeah, we've all got that fucker.
Right. So my friend that is that friend to me, I asked her if she wanted to see Wild with me, and she was like, fuck no. And I was like, which isn't uncommon.
Right, yeah.
Especially among our particular group of friends.
Right.
That there are people that are very divided on the shit no or fuck yes. And she was like, not gonna see it. And I was like, really? I think it's gonna be good. She was like, it might be a good movie, but fucking Cheryl Strayed's gonna be had one day. She's a hack. She's gonna be one of those people that gets called out later for having never set foot on the PCT. And she's never, like, none of this stuff ever happened. She is a writer. It's like that,
Nicholas,
who was the guy that did
A Million Tiny Pieces?
Yeah.
A Million Little Pieces? Yeah.
Whatever.
Oprah Book Club.
Yeah,
guy.
it was the picture of the sprinkles in the hand. That's all I remember is that the cover of the book was sprinkling.
But I think it's called A Million Little Pieces or A Million Broken Pieces, or it's an Oprah thing. Edit point.
Yeah, right, exactly. A Million Little Pieces.
Boom.
James Frey.
I know my Oprah Book Club shit. Don't test me.
Bam. Yeah, my friend who, is glaringly up to date on the epic tragedies of the world was just like, Cheryl Strayed's full of shit.
She's a liar.
And one day she's gonna be found out. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, you're probably right. Because you're right about all that shit, but
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I bet not.
You never know.
Yeah,
You never
who
know.
knows? Who knows?
You never know.
But the one thing,
some people are just psychopaths.
Yeah, true.
and they don't get found out until way later, way after they've made their millions.
The one thing that I did like about it that a few things. I've got a few notes here. I'm trying to read as I go. Well, one, I love the inner dialogue, the shit that goes through her head as she's hiking.
Yeah. Because
that's another thing. In the opening scene, The opening scene where she pulls the boot off.
Yeah.
I made fun of it the other day online.
Yeah, you did. You asshole.
But I was just joking around.
You asshole.
But
you turned so many people off when you said that. You have to be careful about that kind of thing.
Sometimes I'll just say something and see what happens. No, I absolutely.
You should hashtag that. Sometimes you just say things to see what happens.
Yeah. Honestly, I love that opening scene.
Yeah.
I saw it and I said, I thought to the first thought I had when she pulled the nail off, I was like, if you haven't done that before, or if you haven't had that kind of fucking day, we've all had that kind of day in real life, regular life around town, when you can go back and get to water, you can get to a shower, you can get to food. You can go to McDonald's, you can go get your AM Crunch Wrap from Taco Bell.
The other day I had a really bad day at work, bad morning at work. And so on my break, my first break of the day,
drank a beer.
I came back home, took a shower, changed my clothes, and decided I was just going to start the day over again and went back to work. And was back to work by the time my break was over. And I was just like, what a fucking luxury that I can just declare the day a do-over.
Exactly.
And be able to feel like I have officially started my day over again. When you're on trail, you can't do that shit.
Yeah.
Especially not when you pull a fucking toenail off. And lots of people have done it or been next to somebody who's done it.
And there's that. We talked about it a few episodes ago. Whenever I was on top of Max Patch, and in getting my pack out, my cook pot rolled down Max Patch. Hundreds and hundreds of feet down Max Patch. And it's like, fuck. And this was 2 days after I'd had basically the 1998 equivalent of the Noro outbreak.
Right.
And so, like, you know, I the first thought in my mind was, if you haven't hiked and done this movie means zero to you. Here's a quick humble brag. Not even really a humble brag. There's a guy who writes for New Girl and a few of those other, like Foxy.
My favorite show.
I know you love New Girl. And he also used to write for Chelsea Lately, a few other things.
Also one of my favorite shows.
He and I somehow got into a back and forth one time, and now we follow each other. And I guess right before he got I so badly wanted to ask him for the screener. He's an African-American guy, not a big hiker. And he was just like,
shocker.
He said, if he was like,
Sorry.
shout out, Wild Child.
Yeah.
And I was like,
represent.
He said, if this bitch wins an Academy Award for taking a walk, I fucking quit show business. And so I told him, I was like, I sent him a message. I'm like, I kind of need this movie to do well.
I'm not going to say that Reese Witherspoon and Emma Stone are on the same level. But I really
she's moved up.
I really like Reese Witherspoon.
She really moved up for me in this. I was like
her.
Now also you can find it on YouTube.
She's not quite made national treasure status, like we all know.
Emma Stone.
How I feel about Emma Stone.
Yeah.
If I could tuck Emma Stone right in my pocket, I would.
What'd you think of her Rosanna Dana on 4? Anyway,
she can do no wrong.
She can do no wrong. But so she, I watched one of the vignette little like featurette things that they have about the movie, and I didn't know this, but like the movie came about because Reese Witherspoon read the book, and then called Cheryl Strayed before they even did anything, and was just like, I don't know you, I don't know who you are, but
my friend
I
planted the seed. My incredibly PC friend planted the seed that's all a ruse, but so now I have a hard time believing it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, God damn it, that does sound too perfect to be true.
Too perfect.
But I'll go with you on this one.
I'll be a hopeless romantic and fall into that.
That's fine.
The big thing that jumped out to me about this, and also a little bit about A Walk in the Woods, is that it kind of reinforced or at least my theory, and it seems like it's pretty close, is that and this is going to sound, I even wrote this on my notes, this is going to sound frou-frou, but people, quote unquote, find the trail in times of like crossroads.
Yeah, transition. For sure.
transition, and we talked about before, there's so many people, like for me it was school, and for other people it's work or
it's a great answer
life
to a question, and it's a great question to be found.
I mean, how many people did you meet? They're hiking because they lost a loved one,
Yeah.
or they lost their job, or they retired, got a divorce, or whatever. And got
absolutely.
and all that kind of stuff. And so it seems like that's at least that did seem to kind of ring true. Not with her character at least.
Even just the losing the toenail scene.
Yeah.
I had to make a mental note because I watched this with my husband. My husband's not a squeamish person. He edits murderous photos for TV shows,
right?
Like photo edits, brain fragments out of true crime.
So they can
TV.
put it on TV, yeah.
Yes. So he's not a squeamish man. There are times that I can be squeamish and times that I'm not. And we're watching this movie, and it's the part where she pulls her toenail off.
And you're like, here it comes.
And he grabs my arm and says, "Careful, baby, you might not want to watch this." And I smiled through the entire scene. I didn't close my eyes, and I smiled because we've all fucking been there. And by we've all, I mean anybody who's listening to this.
Yeah. The first toenail I lost in my sleeping bag.
Either wants to have, I mean, you have to really fucking want to hike the AT to be okay with losing a toenail.
Yeah.
Or you fall into the other category of the people that are either wincing or going, no fucking way.
Yeah.
I don't want any part of that. And my husband falls into the I don't want any part of that category. Totally fine either way. You married a hiker, I married a non-hiker, and I think we're both pretty happy with our choices.
Yeah, we're good.
but that's just it. Is I think the hikers watch that part and they smile because that's part of it.
Yeah. That kind of scene also reminded me of what I always tell people when they're coming to our podcast for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it through episode 4, we're friends for life.
You're going to be okay.
We're okay. If you can't make it through episode 4,
this may not be the podcast.
Yeah, this might not be it. Go to the NC Beer, guys. We don't curse as much. But yeah, like that scene either made it or people, I'm sure there were people that immediately were like, I'm done.
Yeah.
As soon as they saw that scene. I mean, like that scene right there, it's a much shorter 127 hours.
Right.
But you see it's coming. And when she sat down, I knew we were going to see one of two things. Either a toenail getting ready to come off or just the most disgusting blisters you've ever seen in your life.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure there was probably both involved. I mean, there's no way.
Also, if you've ever had to take a toenail off, that's not really what it looks like, but you get the point.
Yeah. God, those big, gigantic Norwegian welt boots. That's the thing that gets me. Like, watching that.
You know what, though? I watched a really cool, it was like a little 60-minute segment on that is it Danner is gonna make those boots again.
Oh, really?
Specifically because of they've gained popularity because of the movie. Wow. And they're cool boots. I'm not gonna say like that's a great looking pair of boots.
I mean, in '98, I was still selling. The 3-letter big box outfitter still had 1 or 2 pair of Norwegian welt boots on the wall that they were selling. And we were a small store, so there were probably other stores that had 3 or 4 different Norwegian welt boots.
They're good looking boots. I'd totally do a pair of those. I'd totally do a pair of those. It'd be really hard. I'd have to have a gaping vagina.
Really hard.
Take that whole part out.
We'll be right back. I was just thinking, like, can you Shazam yourself going? All right. So yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit. So we've been keeping a secret from you guys.
Maybe we can talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
We've been keeping a secret from y'all for almost a full year now.
We're pregnant.
Yeah, that's it. Good night, folks.
Not true.
It's a girl. It's Taco. past guest, DC, also known as We Will Finish. I believe we interviewed him in 2013 at Trail Days. He emails me one day, or he posts something up on Facebook one day about extra work on a movie that was taking place along the Appalachian Trail.
Wink, 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 wink.
And so I was like, really? So I emailed him. I'm like, what's the deal with this? Well, it turns out that there was a casting agency out of Atlanta who was looking for extras to be in A Walk in the Woods. And so they were filming down at Amicalola. And so we were like, what does it take? And he gave us the information, people to contact. We contacted them. And we had to send 3 pictures of ourselves, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? To send 3 pictures of ourselves. So somewhere at the casting company, there's pictures of us without bags on our heads. Then we had to say our height and weight and ages and all that kind of stuff. So I lied on all of that.
Of course.
And
because you are a woman.
I am. And so then we got the gigs. Right? Isn't that how it kind of went down? And you had to...
Yeah, I was really excited.
Yeah, you did the same kind of process, and so we both went down.
I don't know what you're talking about. I sent them one picture, and they were like, "You're adorable."
Really?
You just get your little tookus right down here.
I think they made us send. I thought you had to send 3 pictures.
No.
Well, all 3 of
I'm
my
cuter than you.
I'll be honest.
So.
All 3 of my pictures had my dogs in them. One of them didn't. Maybe. There's one picture of me that was taken like 10 years ago, where when I see it, I'm like, God damn, I looked good.
That is a good picture of me.
And it was
hey guys, come look at how good I look.
Look at this. That's basically what this picture is. Like occasionally I'll put up as my Facebook profile and it's like, who was that guy? I'm like, exactly. It was just one day where I nailed it.
Come see how good I look.
And so I think I sent that one in there like, ooh. But so we had to be at a parking lot down below Amicalola at like 5:30 in the morning.
Which seemed really early then until I realized that was going to be the time that I needed to clock into my new job. Now it seems like sleeping.
But you also had to drive like 7 hours to get there.
I left that night, drove a long time. I basically paid for a hotel room to take an hour and a half nap and a shower so that I could be at the base of Amicalola Falls on time.
And I, getting off work kind of early in the morning, never went to bed. Mm-hmm. I think I sat down for 2 hours and then turned around and just drove down. Because it was only like just a few hours away from me. But still doing that, having to be there at 5 a.m., it was just like, oh, just let me get through this.
Yeah.
So
a long day.
You get down there, they put you onto shuttle buses, vans, and then sure enough, boom, they drop you off at the front doors of Amicalola. You know, if you're
just that easy.
Yeah,
with your pack.
With your pack, that was the thing. You had to have stuff to make you look like you were hiking and backpacking,
whatever that means,
quote unquote, to make you look like a backpacker. Now, before this, I contacted our good friend Baltimore Jack, and I said, "Hey, Jack, I'm going to be doing this thing. Do you want me to get in touch with this casting agency?" Because I was like, "I'll swing by and pick up Baltimore Jack."
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'll leave an hour early to stop by and pick him up. Because at this point in time, he would have been at Mountain Crossings for the 2014 season. So, and he was just like, no. But he's like, but do me a favor. If you can get a hold of the script, let me know.
Get right on that for you.
So he wanted to give them some notes. And I was like, I'll do what I can do. And, of course, I'll be honest, we never even saw a script. But anyway, so so you pull up to this place, and then, boom, they drop you off at Amicalola. And then one place that I'm certain a lot of hikers do not go is downstairs. Go downstairs, and there's like a little banquet hall, little area. And so they had one room was costumes, and then the other room was like craft services.
There was also a makeup room, which neither of us saw.
Yeah, we never saw that.
We were too flawless.
And then just kind of a seating area, and Amicalola is just beautiful. I mean, just like the whole place there is gorgeous. I mean, if you're silly enough to take the approach trail. So we get there, and we get there at different times. And
we got there early.
Yeah, and we wound up, and they made it sound like the only time you were going to be able to eat is if you got there at 5:30.
Yeah, they sure did, and I wasn't going to miss a free meal.
Right.
So,
but then, like, 8 o'clock rolled around, we're still able to eat. You know, like, it was one of those. Yeah. So we see DC, We Will Finish. We see him there, and we kind of chit-chat. And then it was a convoluted way. You had to go through the same line twice to get your paperwork and then to hand in your paperwork. So
I think they'd work out a system by now. But that's okay.
But I didn't deal with there was only one person where I was like, ugh. But everybody else I talked to, they were all as nice as they could be. Everybody on the shoot were really, really nice. And what would you say? There are probably 150 people there.
There probably were.
Like 100, 150.
But remember the stark contrast between professional extras trying to be hikers, and hikers trying to be extras.
Yes. Lots of fishing poles strapped to backpacks.
We went through a wardrobe check.
A wardrobe shakedown.
They wanted us to wear our clothes, and I was just wearing my normal everyday casual clothes, but I had brought hiker clothes.
Yeah.
And I kind of laid them out so that they could take a look. And they looked at me I was wearing a brown fleece 3/4 zip and pair of jeans.
Yeah.
But I had all my hiker clothes, and that was when the wardrobe lady threw her absolute bitch fit and was like,
"That's the person I was talking about.
Why is everybody wearing black?" And it was like, "'Cause we're hikers, and that's the best color to not be dirty." Like that's. Have you tried to find many running shorts that aren't black? Because it's hard to do. And so she went through all my stuff, and she looked at me and she said, "Do you have any yoga pants?" And I said, "Yeah." And she was like, "Put your yoga pants on, keep your shirt on that you're wearing." And like, I had all this other stuff. I had bright colored other things. I did have my Pox and Puss podcast shirt on under the brown, but she wouldn't let me have that showing.
Yeah. But there were a few brands they wanted you to wear if you could.
Yeah.
Like REI, Patagonia,
REI,
North Face. That's right. It wasn't Patagonia. It was REI, North Face.
There were a couple of sponsors of the movie.
Yeah.
That they wanted.
And the director of the AT was there.
Yes.
Kind of as I don't know if he was a consultant, but more just kind of like.
They had like a table set up.
Yeah, they had a whole table set up for ATC stuff. You could go up and get the ATC newsletters and all this other stuff. But so anyway, so we go through the line. So I'm standing in line to hand my paperwork back in. This is before the clothing shakedown. And DC comes up to me and he just is like kind of whispers in my ear. He's like, "Hey man, look over at the craft services table." And I kind of look over. I'm like, "Yeah, man. Shitload of food, you know." And he's like, no, the guy in the hat. And at this point in time, all you and I know is that we're extras and we've seen no one famous at this point.
I thought that I saw Robert Redford 3 different times, but they were all stunt doubles.
Yeah, it was a stand-in.
They all looked exactly like this guy.
Yeah.
It looked like fucking triplets.
Yeah. But I genuinely thought, we're going to go there and they're going to film us walking across the parking lot. They're going to film us getting out of a car.
Read the book as many times as I had.
No.
I would have been able to tell you that
they were going to be there.
This is the scene that we're going to be doing.
Well, see, I kind of thought like, with this many extras, they're going to have us do this or that, but we're never going to see these two guys. So anyway, so I'm standing there in that line and he's like, "Look over there." And it's like, holy shit, that is Nick Nolte.
Well, you said to me, you were like, "Look over there," and I was like, "Yeah."
Well, because he had told me that.
There's some big dude with stringy hair,
and he looks like a really bad off Neil Young.
Like, he looked like a homeless person.
Yeah, but like he kind of had that like Neil Young. He had like a flat brim. He had like a it was like
Aussie,
a short Aussie, like an Aussie, like a short cowboy hat thing on.
Yeah,
looked like it was felt, and a feather hanging out of it. And all this stuff, and it was like, holy shit, that's fucking Nick Nolte. Now, we've talked about before in the past that I was almost in a Nick Nolte movie where, again.
When you like elbowed me and you were like, "Hey, look at that." And I was like, it's an old man coughing up scrambled eggs across the table.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. And you were like, "That's Nick Nolte." And I was like, never would have guessed.
So it was really claustrophobic in that room. where everybody was. And now, like you talked about professional extras. So you'd walk past a table, and they were all calling like the people in the movies by their first name.
Yeah.
So in this same company has done Divergent. They've done the Hunger Games movies, a few others. And so a lot of people there had done Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And so they were like, well, with Jennifer.
Yeah.
Well, I talked with Jennifer. And you're like, this guy's talking about Jennifer Lawrence.
That's the
like
only,
they're buddies.
That's the only Jennifer name you can drop around here. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Like, okay, so you're hearing all these conversations of people that are talking about their extras experience. For the whole day, 10 hours, I think I cleared after taxes $80.
Yeah.
So professional extra maybe, and that's after like that was like, you know,
my travel expenses were much more than that.
Yeah, it was a whole 12-hour day as far as like getting there and leaving, because you couldn't just leave. They had to drive you down in a van, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting ahead. But I
mean, you could have hiked, but who wants to walk that far?
Who wants to? Ugh. And so so you and I just step out into this hallway just to kind of get away from the extra.
Sorry, I don't know why I keep making a monocle.
You keep making monocles out of your headphone loops, but at a cord. But
sorry.
So you and I are standing there, just like, just like kind of getting a break in this hallway.
We were pretty sure we were not going to get any screen time this whole way.
And then out of nowhere, through the door, bursts Nick Nolte, and he just. I really thought that you and I were going to see Nick Nolte vomit.
Yeah.
And he starts coughing.
Which, surprisingly enough, was not the first time that day that we thought we were going to see Nick Nolte vomit.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And so it kind of kept going. And so you and I are standing there kind of like, and he's just like 7 feet away from us. Just like in the area where they prep the little kitchenette thing where they prep stuff to bring over for the, you know, banquets or whatever. He's like just standing there hacking up a lung. And we're both like, huh. And he walks past us and goes, and that's pretty much what it sounded like. Yeah. And we're like, yeah, all right. And so then you and I sat there for probably 5 hours with nothing to do, like from 6 to 11.
I took lots of pictures of people sleeping in the hallway, in the corridor. Just like, wow, this is what it's like, I guess, to be paid.
It felt so dirty. This is one thing that I wrote down and I remembered. It was that it felt very dirty to me because they pretty much put us all into one room. And then once they started filming, anytime a door would open, everybody would turn and look and be like, hi. And they'd all smile at the person. And literally this person would walk in and go, you over there, you, yeah, come on. Or they'd say, I need 9 people. And the first 9 people that hop up, that's who got it.
Yeah.
And so then basically after a while, you and I were just like, after like 5 hours, we were just in the face of every person that walked in, like, hey, we haven't gone out yet. So finally, like at like 11 o'clock, we've been there since 5, whatever. Like 11 o'clock or so, the guy comes down and he's like, you guys haven't been anything yet. We're like, no. Nope. And he's like, all right, you two. And then boom. So they got like 30 or 40 of us in this point in time. And we're downstairs, and then they bring us up to the main floor of Amicalola. So if you come into Amicalola, when you first walk in, desk is on your right, and there's this huge, beautiful glass wall that looks out onto the mountains.
Which you'd know if you had done the approach trail.
I stayed at Amicalola and then drove up there.
You bastard.
Yeah, because, whatever. So I wound up, so you walk in there, and that's when I'm like, there's Robert Redford. Holy shit, wait a minute. That's not Robert Redford.
Looks like him, though.
Yeah, and then the other guy that looked like the Nick Nolte stand-in guy, he looked like Nick Nolte. We're like, holy shit, these guys have got it. And so anyway, so they bring us in, and then they line us up. And they're like, all right, you here, and you, and you, and you, and you. You get picked before me. And then it's like literally me and this lady standing there. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to go back downstairs. And then the guy's like, okay, you here and you here. And so the person I'm sitting with is a professional extra.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the Hunger Games. She was probably about 5'10", 5'11". She was a tall woman.
Really tall, really skinny.
Looked like she weighed about maybe 115 pounds. And I'm like, oh, obviously Hunger Games, yeah.
I don't know if you saw the wardrobe person. She saw that lady and was like, nobody has rocked a corset the way that you did and whatever it was. And like the wardrobe lady knew her by frame.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, she was also, she was from Asheville, and she and her family were also they were like a family that Purina followed for a few months with their dog. They changed like their dog's diet with some Purina thing, and they were a Purina family. And she's telling me all this stuff. And so you and I get placed in 2 spots that were perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm basically sitting.
Just say we were both in very prominent
okay,
spots.
I don't want to.
Just leave it.
That's a good point. So yeah, so we both had really good spots. Won't say where we are, who we are, but let's put it this way: if they miss us,
as long as Nick Nolte doesn't die,
yeah,
before they have to retake anything, we're in the movie.
That's the day that when we left, that was my comment. People were like, what was it like?
Yeah.
I was like, if Nick Nolte can live through the filming of this, we'll definitely be in this movie. We're in. Let's see. We probably shouldn't give away too many, but what was your favorite story? And I know exactly.
I'm not going to tell it. I don't want. It's a good story, and I want to keep it for myself.
You keep it for yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
It's a good story.
It's so good. The one thing I will say about my end is that Robert Redford was literally supposed to basically tap his fingers on my table.
Dick.
Yeah, his dick. Oh, his dick. I said fingers. No, he was supposed to like touch my table. The director gave him direction to tap his fingers on my table, and he never did. He's like, "Hey, Robert, when you come back by, do you mind just kind of rub your fingers across that table as you come by?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And they'd start over. Wouldn't do it. Said it to him like 2-3 times.
On his mind.
Never once.
He had other things on his mind.
The only thing I'll say, so at one point in time, it wasn't useful for me to be in the scene anymore. I wouldn't have been in the shot, so they didn't need anybody to kind of be in the background. So they kind of brought us back, the woman and I, and maybe another table, because they weren't filming at that angle anymore. So they kind of took us back and said, you can sit here. Or they said, you can just step off to the side. Like, okay. So I go step off to the side, and I sit down basically in front of that big wall of glass when you come into Amicalola. I'm just kind of sitting there, not paying attention to anything. You couldn't have your phone with you, so I'm just kind of just sitting there, just kind of watching, looking at stuff, waiting to see if I need to get back in the scene. And then I realize where I'm sitting, just waiting to come back on. I'm sitting like 5-6 feet away from the director's chairs that Nick Nolte and Robert Redford sit in. And so I'm just sitting there, and then I look up, and as I look up, Robert Redford is like right there. Like, holy shit, it's Robert Redford. One thing I really liked about Robert Redford is that we never spoke to him anything. Like I could have, but I just was like, no. It's like it's at work. I don't want to say anything. And so he was like the most. He reminded me a lot of a family friend of mine, but he would walk around. He read everything on the walls of Amicalola. He picked up the ATC newsletter and read it. Like, he was just very like, I don't know. He just really just like, he just explored every inch of Amicalola, like while he was just kind of waiting.
I will say, I have never been a Robert Redford like diehard fan. Like the way that there are people that are like, oh, my favorite actor is Robert Redford. I'm not saying I've actively disliked anything.
Right.
But
I haven't sought it out. And
I've just never been like, this has Robert Redford in it. Yeah. I don't really care about the rest of the movie, but I'm going to go see it because of that.
Yeah.
And
R&R.
I was pretty amazed that, without sounding real cheesy, like you could feel a presence in the room before you knew he was there.
Yeah.
And when he spoke, everybody shut the fuck up and listened.
Yeah.
And
even the director.
And he, in between takes, would go and sit in the corner and read his paper.
Yeah.
And I couldn't pull my eyes away from him.
Yeah.
Just because people talk about an it factor and like a commanding presence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's nothing, you can't deny that everybody in the room, whether they wanted to be or not, was drawn to him.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, well that's what it takes apparently to be, an A-list celebrity. Okay, well now I know.
Yeah.
And I kind of walked away from it going, wow, like he could have told me anything. If he was a cult leader, I would have joined.
Yeah.
Like I was really surprised about that because
Yeah.
I didn't expect that at all.
I wouldn't follow Nick Nolte anywhere though.
No.
There, like, honestly, there's a story that I have in my head, right? There's like 3 stories about Nick Nolte right now that I have in my head that I'm like, I just don't want to tell them on a podcast.
Yeah.
But they were some of the funniest things that have happened. Not on purpose. They were not on purpose. But the one thing I will say about my scene also, well, here's the great thing. So me with the professional,
the 2 other people at my table were
they pros too?
They were professional. Yeah, they knew each other from Hunger Games. Like,
so this lady, she was like, well, I like to kind of create a little story. And so she and I did the same actions. And like she had it timed down to like she would point at something and I would look at it and we would turn back and talk for like 1 second and then kind of laugh about it. But I was, in every scene, I'm served breakfast. Now, we talked about there being craft services. I didn't eat any of that shit. I was like, I drank coffee.
Oh, I ate it.
And I didn't eat anything. I was just like, I don't know what it was. I was like, I just wasn't. I'm not a huge breakfast person to begin with. So 5:30 a.m. for me was like, that might as well be 4 a.m. for other people. I was like, oh, Jesus, this is ridiculous. Like, there's no way I'm getting through this.
Did you say 5:30 a.m. might as well be 4 a.m. for
Yes,
other people?
I thought about it as I was saying that.
That was dumb. Go ahead.
And so
Don't take it out.
I was
You're
like,
not allowed.
please let it just get by without her saying anything. But so anyway, so I'm like, I just am not a big breakfast person. But then now that it's like 11 a.m., now I'm ready to eat.
Yeah.
And so at one point in time, the woman who's playing the waitress, she sets down the food and she turns and she says, you're going to need to stop eating all the biscuits because we're running out of them. And I was like, what the fuck? How are you running out of biscuits? But yeah, I mean, like, meanwhile, yeah, at least I'm getting fresh biscuits every time. Meanwhile, there's like 2 tables set up with all the pancakes that Nick Nolte has to take one big bite out of every time. But anyway, so there was that. So do you remember there's a Saturday Night Live? It was Will Ferrell, Amy Poehler, and I can't remember who the other it was a female guest host. And they were the extras in the background. And they were like and they were just like, everything was overly animated. The entire time I'm with this woman, I'm like, oh, this looks hard. Every time there would be a take, I kept waiting for someone, like one of the PAs, to come over and be like, hey, just so you know, you guys look like assholes. Like, I just kept waiting for it every fucking time. I was like, oh, that one was really bad. Here they come.
So, between you, me, and all of our listeners,
yeah, we'll keep it quiet.
There was one point, cardinal rule for extras. Don't look at the camera.
Yeah.
There was one part where I looked at the camera and I looked away and I was like, oh my God, I looked at the camera. And honestly, like, I've had nightmares since then that they're in the room looking at all the clips of that and they're like, this would have been fucking perfect if it wasn't for that fucking extra in the background who looks at the goddamn camera. And yeah, I also worry
we're going back to Amicalola
because the table that I was sitting at, because we had essentially the same script that we went off of as far as the fake conversation that was going on at our table. I'm worried that the way that they have to splice together the scene, that it's just going to be like, oh, look, an eagle. Oh, look, an eagle. oh, look, an eagle.
I thought about
hey,
this.
look at that eagle out there. Like, because we did that every
Did
single
everybody
time.
point at something?
Yeah, well,
I bet every table did point at something
oh
like,
my
oh.
God. Check out that mountain range. That is beautiful. Like a beautiful Wisconsin sunset.
I just wish that she and I had something like where we were having a fight.
Yeah.
In the background. It was just something else besides like, oh, look over there.
Oh, look, an eagle.
Oh, God. But, yeah, so that went till like, what, like 6 p.m.?
Yeah, it did. It went late.
And it went late and then drove back. And it was like, so I went to sleep for the first time in how many, like 2 days?
I drove until I couldn't drive anymore. I got a microtel suite.
Ooh.
Which, let me just say, it was like $40.
Yeah.
It was the cutest room I have ever... It was like... I felt like it was what a luxury hotel suite would be in Japan. Like...
Right.
Like, I was like, this is adorable. Like, there was not 1 inch of the whole room that was unaccounted for.
Yeah.
And I took an hour-long nap, got up, got in the car, drove my ass as fast as I could back here, got home, changed clothes, went to a job interview.
Jesus.
Like, I didn't have any time to spare. I slapped myself around a couple times just to be like, don't look asleep. Time to go do an interview.
Yeah.
And I went to a job interview. I got the job, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hey, Pox and Puss, it's DC Martin from We Will Finish Appalachian Trail, class of 2013. Just want to call. I know you guys get ready to talk about a Walk in the Woods movie. Obviously, I went and did that. I guess it would have been the second day of shooting. Interesting little story. How to start off the morning, coming out of the restroom before filming was beginning, ended up bumping into a gentleman who was kind of holding himself up against the elevator. Guy turns around, ends up being Nick Nolte, to my surprise. And he's like, hey, you know where the fucking breakfast is? And so, obviously, I took him down to where breakfast is. He ends up getting his food in a big old to-go box, ends up sitting down at the table with me. He's got pancakes and eggs and just things, just pounds and pounds of, like, just pancakes, eggs, and bacon, all kinds of stuff. And I ended up asking him, hey, you know, have you guys actually been out on the trail yet? And he kind of looks up at me with this, I don't know what kind of look, it was a crazy man look. And he was like, fuck no, we ain't even going to see the trail. The whole movie's fucking a mirage, and blah, blah, blah. And as he's doing this, he's got pancakes and eggs spitting out of his mouth. So it was a pretty funny morning. It's a great way to start off the second day of shooting was on a Walk in the Woods. Another story would have been on a different day of shooting. We were doing a bunkhouse hiker scene where they're coming in, and there's one part of the scene you'll see in the movie where Nolte's got to get up on top of this bunk bed thing, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, and I can't wait to actually see it on the big screen. And I'm happy I got to be part of that. But we had to do take after take after take, and it was Nolte trying to get up on top of this bunk bed the right way. So there was like 15 takes or whatever it was, and finally Nolte gets up on top, and he yells at the top of his lungs, I'm fucking 75 fucking years old! I can't be fucking going up and down this motherfucking thing! And then plops down on top of the bed. So that was pretty funny itself. That part of the scene, I tell you, the movie's going to be funny. I know a lot of people are not going to like it because, whatever. But just take it as a joke. Now, I had fun out there. I hope you guys had fun while you were doing it. And then another thing would be Nolte is such a crazy man, and you literally think that he's psycho and crazy and just weird. The man is a phenomenal actor. It was just an honor to be able to sit there and watch this guy do what he does, and especially Robert Redford. And I got to sit and talk to him the next time I went out. Just a very humble gentleman, and it was just a phenomenal time, you know, and he just wanted to make the best movie he could. And, you know when Nolte is actually drinking, because it's about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. He kind of stumbles around, he's like, and smoking a cigarette, and he'll drop it a few times, and we'll have to walk over and pick it up for him and give it back to him, like, here you go, Nick. So, but yeah, it was a fun time. Good hearing you guys. I'm glad you guys are still doing well. Love you guys. Lots of puss. Keep it up. DC Martin, we will finish. Moose!
That was one thing I wondered about with Nick Nolte. Was, like, everybody knows Nick Nolte as the guy who got pulled over with the DUI with the crazy hair and the Hawaiian shirt.
Mm-hmm.
What a lot of people don't know is that he left filming a scene. Like, he left a movie shoot that day. And the look on his face and the hair and the shirt were part of his character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he left in makeup and everything like that. So, like, the character, I don't know what movie it was, but I heard someone talk about that. Like, you don't understand. Like, no, that's the way he looked that day on camera. And so it looked even worse, the fact that he had the DUI or whatever it was that he had. So it looked even worse. So, you know, when he came running past us, coughing like that. Now, granted, he's an older guy and that kind of thing. And I know he smokes. And so he's not, you know, he's not the healthiest guy. But I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, was Nick Nolte in character the whole time we were there? Like, was he one of those guys who's like, I'm going to be Cats now? Have you seen the little bit? Have you seen the scene where he arrives on the airplane?
Yeah.
And it's like, seeing that scene, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Were we just watching someone?
What is that called? A mode? What is it?
A method?
Method.
Yeah,
method
I was like, were we just watching like someone like deep in method acting who was like, because I mean, Katz is not a healthy guy.
No.
He's a heavy guy.
Yeah.
He drinks. He smokes. He
doesn't drink. He's recovering.
That's right. That's right. But you know, there's just those things where I was like, is he just? And I still don't know.
Is he just being Cats?
Is he being Cat? Like, is he being this guy, or is there a little bit about? And again, yeah, we don't know. But like, it was one of those where I left thinking like, am I just judging this guy based on this one day? Or, you know, I don't know. See what I mean, though? Where you like, did you kind of have that feeling where you're like, is this? I think it's a little bit, I would say it's like 60-40.
I just can't help but like look at the cast that keeps accruing on IMDb and going, oh my God. I really hope that this movie doesn't get discounted by hikers.
Yeah.
Because it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I hope it does well. It's a comedy that already I mean, I think it's fair to say you and I, if we were ever to watch a movie genre of choice, it would be a comedy.
Right.
But we also are realistic in that that doesn't win awards.
Yeah.
Comedies don't win awards generally.
I read a review. It was one of the first reviews I read. Now, granted, do you know what Wild is on Rotten Tomatoes right now?
No, what is it?
91%.
Wow.
Like, a certified fresh, I think, is 78.
Wow.
Or 80% is certified fresh. If you get like 80% after like whatever X amount of critics do it, you're called certified fresh. What's 91%? I mean, you don't get many.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And
the highest rated movie that I like is Blackfish, and it's like a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes.
You like Blackfish?
I loved it.
The documentary?
Yeah. I love documentaries.
Wow.
I love
That's a dark motherfucker.
I love documentaries.
You love watching people getting killed by fish?
No, they don't actually show that.
Oh, okay. I heard between the podcast I listened, I feel like I heard the entire fucking. It's like
number one, it's a really good movie.
Okay.
Number two, I grew up for the bulk of my childhood in Orlando, and we loved going.
You were an orca.
No, we loved going to SeaWorld. And it's amazing because like a lot of the attacks, quote unquote, happened while we lived there, and they never showed it on the news. Like it was never something that was publicized ever. As far as actual attacks, they show one trainer doing like where she would put her foot in the whale's mouth and take it out.
Yeah.
Put her foot in the whale's mouth and take it out.
That's when the whale's like, let's go down, bitch.
And he there's a really scary, there's another one where he just takes the person by the foot and takes him down, takes him up, takes him down, takes him up, takes him down, takes him up.
Yeah.
Does all this crazy shit. There was another one where a whale takes the trainer by the foot and pulls her in, and like she ends up breaking her wrist and like that kind of stuff. But both of those people live. They don't ever show any of the footage of anybody dying. But I love that movie. And
It's got, what is it rated on Rotten Tomatoes?
it's like 98.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a pretty high one. I remember that.
Yeah, it's a good. I gotta check it out.
Well, the one thing that the thing about A Walk in the Woods that I saw, the first after Sundance, there was only one professional review out there, and it basically said that
98 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's A Walk in the Woods, if you don't mind? Because what I saw was
would it be on Rotten Tomatoes by now?
yeah, it's already up there. Well, I know it's on IMDb. IMDb will show you what it is. That's what it was. It was IMDb was the place where I saw this one review, one professional.
38.
38. Because it basically called A Walk in the Woods Wild Hogs for backpacking.
Yeah.
And
Wait. I have two different things. I have a 38 and then I have a 71. And I'm not sure what the difference is.
sometimes IMDb will show.
Oh, never mind. The 71 is for Into the Woods.
Oh, Into the Woods, yeah.
38 is for A Walk in the Woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is that I don't think that what they showed at Sundance was the final.
No,
I think they showed a little bit. I imagine that probably that $18 million goes towards workshopping it, finding out what other, things they can put in, take out. But, yeah. On another story about Wild, have you seen the next movie that, they always talk about in Hollywood, you do one for you and one for the studio.
Yeah.
It's like if you really have a passion project, let's say your passion project was Wild. You got to do one of the studio ones. Have you seen the most recent commercial for a movie that Reese Witherspoon is in? Reese Witherspoon plays a take-no-nonsense cop, and Sofia Vergara is a fugitive on the run.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I have no idea what the fuck it's called, but ugh. Hey, we have another phone call.
Okay.
Let's see what it says. I have no idea what it is, and I haven't listened to it.
Hey, this is Digger. I'm calling about a little drunken hiking story from a few years ago when me and a couple handfuls of long-distance hikers got together and did something called the Duncannon 24. And that starts in Boiling Springs, and you hike to the Doyle and Duncannon, that's northbound, and it includes 24 beers and 24 miles, but it's actually like 25.8. And we attempted to do this hike. And so we left, after a long night of drinking at the Doyle, we shuttled back to Boiling Springs and started hiking in the morning. And I had been training for this hike probably, a month or two. So I've been drinking like 12 beers, doing 12 miles pretty much every weekend to get ready for the hike. And anyway, long story short, we started hiking. Rain started pouring down. I'm hiking behind this guy, Tank. Everything's going great. Tank, of course, is carrying glass bottles because I can hear jingle, jingle, jingle in his pack. And we're trying to drink about a beer a mile, which is working out great until about the 15 to 18 mile mark. And pouring rain, everyone's just bowing out left and right. They're drunk and they're tired and they're cold. I decided to stick it out, and we get about to Cove Mountain at the end, and I'm the only one left. The last mountain right before you get into Duncannon. And I wasn't really drunk. I was just super tired. And I was just tired, and I just was like falling asleep while walking. And by this time, it's the night. It's probably 8:30 at night, and I'm climbing the mountain, which is an easy climb, but I just was going from blaze to blaze, grabbing the tree and holding it, and just like, okay, and I'm looking at the next tree and saying, I'll get that blaze, and I just kind of made my way. Like, okay, and I'm looking at the next tree and saying, I'll get that blaze, and I just kind of made my way. So it took me about 4.5 hours to do the last 3 or 4 miles. And I'm coming down Cove Mountain late at night, and Dickie, who's the proprietor of the Doyle, and a few of the hikers who had bowed out early had started going towards the woods there down that road that runs along through Duncannon. And they came upon me at the bottom of the hill, and I was just sitting there drinking my final beer, and just totally hammered. And of course, went back to the doyle, drank a little bit more, and then finally passed out. And I've never drank again. That was the end of the line for me. I decided that night that I'd probably have a problem. But anyway, it was a great time, everyone.
You got cut off there at the last, but I mean, I didn't do anything like that coming into into Duncannon, but I did do the Boiling Springs Duncannon 26 point whatever the hell miles it is.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it before in here probably, but the Earl Schaefer shelter is the last shelter before you get into Duncannon. It's just, or at least it was 98. And I mean, and it literally looks like it was built with baseball bats. I mean, like Earl Schaefer built it himself. It's like really, there's space between everything around it.
Right.
I mean, it was built by a man who never had a phone. So, and so I remember Barf and I, at that point in time, like it was like a half mile to the water. And so like we both like had like, I had like a quarter of an Nalgene and he had like a half an Nalgene. So we just like poured all of it into one and then divided it up into half. And we're like, all right, here's what we got for the last 5 miles into town. And I remember when we got into Duncannon, same thing, just dehydrated as fuck. Walked into the convenience store right there on that main road that goes into town. And I'll never forget that Barf grabbed a Gatorade out of the fridge, turned around and said to the person behind the counter, I'm going to pay for this. And then just just downs it right there, and like with the cooler door still open, and it's like 8:00 at night, oh, thank fucking God. I'm gonna pay for this. Oh God.
Truer words have never been spoken.
I don't recall. I know I've hiked drunk before, but not often. I definitely haven't done that where it's like one beer per mile.
No.
I don't think I've done that, but I know I've set off after having a few drinks. I definitely did that a few times on the AT. I know I did that in New York, New Jersey.
In 2009, I just didn't drink a lot. I mean, off trail I would have, but like on trail, it just wasn't appealing.
On trail, pure Molly.
No, I was thirsty for water, or I was craving Coca-Cola. So to drink beer kind of seemed like a waste. I'm not going to say that I didn't drink drinks, but it wasn't ever really in excess that I can remember. I mean, maybe that's the key point, is that I can remember. I mean, I did a lot and I just don't realize.
So going to read some of our reviews from iTunes. As always, any 5-star review, even if you talk trash about us, we will read it. There's 5 stars, all we care about. All right, so this first 5-star, which is number 50 of our 50th actual reviews, not just a little star rating, is by someone with the initial Z.R. Davis. They're obviously a loser because they gave this review on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Nothing else to do.
And who would we know that was Z.R. Davis?
I don't even know.
No idea. So it's 5 stars. This podcast makes my loins bubble. In case you're not a doctor, that's a good thing. Pox and Puss promised me they'd read this review no matter what. Let's see if it happens. And then he didn't write anything else. That's weird. This is me, Pox. That's weird that the reviewer stopped writing at that point. Oh well. Anyways, I have a crazy irritable bowels right now. I think it's because I ate an entire bucket of instant mashed potatoes mixed with expired sriracha. Or maybe it was just a tall glass of warm emu milk. Now that I think about it, it probably was that holiday ham I had found on the street. Street ham never settles well with me. Puss, I'm sorry that it smells like a war zone in here. Our listeners are very lucky that they can only hear this podcast and not smell it, because they'd all be dead. Do you know why we don't do remote podcasts? Oh, now you know why we don't do remote podcasts. I feel like I've said too much. Puss, what do you think? All right, then number 51.
End of
review. Number 51. Get me back out there. JRAP 24. This is on January 31st. I just discovered you guys 7 weeks ago after watching the special on ETV. I was inspired to search for hiking podcasts again, after those I used to listen to eventually fell by the wayside. I listened to the first couple, then I've gone through nearly all the rest in 2 weeks. I did just simply over and planning on getting lost in all of this time. Rather than sitting on the using it like you guys. I'll have to stop by NFC on one of my trips through you also. Thanks so much for your hard work and waiting for especially to quote the Reverend Banter. Let's keep
on. Gets me through some of the tough hour shifts at work. These two are always entertaining. Keep drinking and putting out great episodes. Can't get some of the things that they talk about out of my mind, unfortunately. Puss tells some funny stories, including one about her husband letting her sit on top of him on the toilet if she needed to take a dump while he uses the bathroom. I think the story happened because they were talking about how they only have one bathroom. Funny as hell. I'd pick a favorite story from Pox, but there's too many good ones. Thanks for the laugh, guys. Just so you know, Joe, that was hypothetical, didn't actually happen. But thanks for listening.
But the strange thing is that I think one of the weirdest things about that is that I brought that to the table with me joking around about my wife doing that.
And then we realized that's on every couple thing.
And you were like, we've done that too. And it's like, oh, maybe just sick. You know what I heard a couple of weeks ago? I forgot. It was, I can't remember who it was. It was a famous person on a podcast. And they were talking about how, no, it wasn't famous. It was just somebody. And they were talking about how if they ever heard their wife fart, they wouldn't know what to do.
Oh, my.
Like, I wouldn't know what to do. And like, and it was like somebody saying like, my girlfriend's never pooped at my house. And I don't know what I would do if she did. And it's like, what do you think happens? And I've heard a couple people be like, oh, I don't want to hear my girlfriend fart. And it's like, what are you going to do with your life? Like, what are you going to do if you live together?
What's the plan here?
Yeah,
what's your long term?
What's the long term? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like the guy that I saw walking into the bathroom one time while wearing a pair of Google glasses. And I was like, what's your long term, man? He's like, what? And I'm like, walking into a bathroom with Google Glass on. And he was like, I'm like, all right. Just kept on walking.
Here's my wiener.
Yeah, like, hey, I got this thing that can record anything at any time. And I'm going to go wear it into a men's room.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself, sir.
Not wise.
Yeah.
Not wise. Number 53, Awesome Podcast by Andrew Fritsch. This is my first podcast. I picked yours.
Ours too.
Simply Great AT Entertainment. I feel like if Ron Swanson was going to write a review, that's what it would be.
This would be.
So you're in good company.
Oh, that was the entire review?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were in the middle of it. Like,
No.
That is
That's it. That's the whole thing. This is my first podcast. I picked yours. Simply Great AT Entertainment.
Well, there's one guy, I can't remember his name now, but he has only tweeted one time. And I remember seeing this guy at Trail Days last year. And he's only tweeted one time, and it was like a question we asked, and he responded to it. And it's his only tweet. And I'm like, wow, I feel pretty special.
You would.
Why wouldn't you?
I don't know.
Okay.
Number 54. Such a fun podcast. An experience by crowens.uga. I just wanted to take review 68 so I could give my girlfriend 69. Love, Gooch. Gooch, that is very giving and considerate of you.
That is awesome.
Princess Knight Rider is a lucky lady. Number 55. This podcast has ruined my life by Princess Knight Rider. More than once, I have snorted through my laughter at work, in the library, and on the street. My boyfriend no longer trusts me to make tea unsupervised, and I'll never be able to hear anyone say the words, my wife, without Puss's voice in my head. The non-linear banter keeps me on the edge of my seat, awaiting Pox's next impressive burp and Puss's next impolite outburst. I wanted this review to be vaguely related to the Appalachian Trail, but then again, this podcast is only vaguely related to the Appalachian Trail. Oh well, truly. These two prove that What is necessary to hike to Haiti is not the nicest gear, the safest survival tactics, but proper preparation of one's sense of humor and tolerance for poop stories. In the end, I laugh, I cry, I crave limeritas. Thank you, Princess Knight Rider.
That's right up there with one of the best ever.
We really appreciate that.
Speaking of non-linear, so somebody posted something. So during the Flow Easy show, I start talking about a fight that took place at a martini bar across from what used to be, was it Napper Tandy's that was across from where we were?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, well, I start telling this story about a fight.
Yeah, that place was slick at that point.
I have no idea what I was talking about. I'm listening to it. I'm editing it, and I'm like, what? And it was like a fight that someone...
It's the one that's across the parking lot, not across the street.
Right, yeah, shared the parking lot with Napper Tandy's. I don't ever remember ever going into that place. I was sitting there listening, and I was like, ooh, what story is this that I'm about to tell about a fight that some of my friends got in at a martini bar? And it was like, oh, I don't think that it did happen. Is he at the back door?
I made all that shit up. Yeah, turn these.
And somebody approached me. They were like, fight at a martini bar? And I'm like, I don't know. I just couldn't edit it out. I'm like, oh, here it is.
Oh, boy.
So, so that's all, folks. Let's see. You can find us on Facebook. Just look for Pox and Puss. You can find me, Pox Holiday, on Facebook. Twitter, at Pox and Puss, at Pox Holiday, at ATPuss in Boots. We have a Tumblr page, but it's only updated by my Instagram feed.
We have Pinterest board, but it's only same thing. Same thing.
2 pictures.
Etsy. Pox and Puss.
Pox and Puss. Journey borderline vomiting. Yeah. God, just the best thing to do is go to AppalachianTrials.com.
Use your best judgment.
Go almost all the way down to the bottom, and you'll find us just above the PCT. And
that sounds dirty. Find us. It sounds medically dirty.
Just go
all the way down to the bottom. If you get to the PCT, you've gone too far.
Precariously positioned above the PCT. And just do that. And
do it.
Just so you know, this past week, 2 phone calls were made.
2,
3, 14 were made about Thru-Hiker prom. Dun dun dun. One between me and some guy named Z.R. Davis. Wait a minute,
guy.
That sounds familiar. And a little brewery called the Damascus Brewery. More details to come soon.
It's a damn brewery.
Mm-hmm. Damascus. Anything else?
No.
No, we don't have anything for you guys. It'll be a few weeks, and we'll talk to you in a bit. I'm going to start that over.
Que horas.